and under investigation when he met his Waterloo on Friday, December 5th, 2024, when he wanted to carry out another operation while 2 AK-47 rifles, 5 magazines, and 20 rounds of live ammunition were recovered from the cultists. The Rivers police chief revealed that other members of the gang escaped with bullet wounds and urged members of the public to report to the nearest police station if they see anybody with bullet wound. Rivers State High Court sitting in Port Harcourt has declined an ex parte application filed by Edwin Woko, Nelson DK and 2 others seeking to restrain the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State, Aaron Chukwuemeka, along with other members of the state executive from parading themselves as party leaders. Presiding over the matter, Justice Stephen Jumbo refused to grant the ex parte motion directing the plaintiffs to serve notice on Chukwuemeka, the PDP national chairman, and other parties involved. The judge instructed the respondents to appear before the court to justify why the motion should not be granted, and the case was adjourned to December 10th, 2024 for a hearing on the substantive motion. Addressing journalists after the court session, counsel for the plaintiffs Bruno Mbaeri provided insight into the court proceedings, emphasizing the legal basis for the application. Edwin Woko, one of the plaintiffs, alleged that PDP stakeholders and principal members in Rivers State had on September 28th inaugurated an interim leadership structure with him at the helm of affairs, and the group comprising himself, Erin Inache Morris, Nelson Ndubusi, and Nyebuchi DK was reportedly set up to act as the party's interim leaders until an inclusive Congress is held following the expiration of the tenure of Chukwuemeka-led executive. Woko further claimed that the Congress that produced Chukwuemeka and his executive committee was conducted in violation of an existing court order, rendering it illegal. This is coming after the PDP had proceeded with its congresses in Rivers State despite an interim injunction barring the conduct of the exercise. Bayelsa State government has accused some members of the All Progressive Congress in the state allegedly diverting some items the Federal Ministry of Regional Development sent to the state as palliatives for flood victims. The State Commissioner for Information, Orientation and Strategy, Mrs. Ebiowu Koku Obi, disclosed this while briefing newsmen on the palliatives the state government received from the federal government in Government House, Yenagoa. Koku Obaye, who did not give the number of items that the APC members allegedly diverted, said the state received the items on Saturday last week and that the government was only informing members of the public on the developments, adding that Bayelsa State received 2,000 bags of 50 kg rice, 6 bags of 50 kg beans, 150 cartons of spaghetti, 1,000 pieces of mosquito nets, 100 cartons of tomato paste, and 6 bags of detergent, and others. She said the state also received 50 pieces of cooking stove, 6 pieces of grinding machine, 6 pieces of sewing machine, 3 motorcycles, and 4 bags of rubber slippers. Responding to a question, she said Bayelsa had earlier received 3 billion naira from the federal government for flood victims and that the money was spent on visitation to flood-affected communities and various IDP camps by reaching out to them. But reacting to the allegation, the Assistant Publicity Secretary of the Bayelsa State Chapter of the APC, Mr. Coronation Tokbo, described the allegations as frivolous, adding that federal government palliatives are not sent to political parties but to states. Amotekun has nabbed a local security guard at Rubber Estate in Ose River, Ovia Southwest local government area of Edo State. Akpo Edet has been apprehended after he allegedly faked his own kidnap. While making an attempt to demand the ransom of 50 million naira from his employer, Edet was nabbed by personnel of the Amotekun Corps. The suspect was apprehended at one of his hideouts in Igbotako, Okitipupa local government area of Ondo State, and his arrest was successful after the Edo Command of the Department of State Services contacted the Ondo and Moteku Corps. The suspect was among 22 suspects paraded on Tuesday at the headquarters of the Ondo and Moteku Corps in Akure, while Adetunji Adeleye, commander of the Ondo and Moteku, who confirmed the arrest of the suspect, said Edet was nabbed at the residence of one Libon James, alleging that Mr. Libon might not be aware that Edet was only faking his own kidnap. He said the two suspects will be handed over to the DSS for further investigation, while the senior security manager of the firm, Oluwole Adesonlu, said Edet had worked for the firm for about 10 years. Analysts have urged the Nigerian police to conduct research on its recruitment process to guarantee transparency and accountability in the police force. Speaking on Atlantic Television Network program Atlantic Blowout Public Affairs, analyst Ogbonna Nwuke asked the police to check the life history of those indicating interest to join the force.
All they do is have the height, get a man, whoever the chief is, whether the chief is a chief or a thief, to write a recommendation. That's all. They don't know from which family the man hails, all kind of attitude he had in the village before he left for the police. Nothing. It's not a business. So you have stragglers. When they run away, they do things they run off. Because the police can't even trace them. They are men of no fixed address.
This comes after the police command in Edo had ordered an investigation into the circumstances that led to the death of a former chairman of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Kaduna Egbiogbodin, at a police checkpoint in Benin City. Lagos State High sitting in Ikeja has convicted and sentenced the couple Harry Nwanwane and Olukemi Odemuyiwa, aka Christine Nwanwane, alongside Temple International Church. Justice Mojisola Dada handed down the verdict after finding them guilty of the offenses preferred against them, and also ordered that the third defendant, Temple International Church, should be deregistered and closed down for using the name of God and the church to defraud people. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had filed 7 counts bordering on stealing, dishonest conversion, false presentation and fraud against the convicts. While the EFCC arraigned the convicts on February 25, 2020, they pleaded not guilty and the prosecution commenced trial. During the trial, the prosecution counsel, Mr. Babatunde Sonoki, called 5 witnesses while the defense called 2 witnesses. And while delivering the judgment, the judge held that the prosecution proved his case beyond reasonable doubt and therefore found both of them guilty. Justice Dada sentenced the 2 suspects to 1 count, while on count 2 to 6, the first convict, Harry Nwanwane, was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment and also ordered that the sentence should run concurrently. Osun State Police Command has arrested a suspect in connection with the killing of a farmer, Sikiru Onaolakpo. Onaolakpo from Olubu family was shot on his farm in the Oki Eketu area, and it is disputed settlement between Ilobu and Ifon Olong communities. Making this disclosure in Oshogbo, the police public relations officer of the command, GMC, said the command had intensified efforts to maintain peace in the area, adding that additional personnel, including tactical team operatives, had been deployed to Ifon and Yobo to forestall further breakdown of peace and order. Opalola confirmed that 1 suspect is in police custody, though she declined to reveal the individual's identity, and assured residents that investigation would uncover the truth and bring the culprits to justice. The violence which led to the destruction of millions of naira worth of properties saw the state government declare an indefinite curfew and seize a piece of land in the center of the dispute, and the state government had since declared the disputed land a buffer zone between Ilobu and Infong communities. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde says the People's Democratic People's Democratic Party would teach the All Progressive Congress a political lesson in the 2026 Osun State election and the 2027 Oyo State election. Makinde also dismissed the notion that the APC would wrestle political control of the two states, describing the ambition of the APC national chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, as unrealistic. Speaking in Osogbo during the inauguration of the stadium roundabout Okebale roundabout, Ilesha Garage roundabout, Dua Carriage Road, Makinde said Ganduje might have been distracted when he said the APC would capture Osun and Oyo states. Ganduje, speaking with journalists after the Independent National Electoral Commission declared the APC candidate Lucky Ayedetiwa as the winner of the November 16th governorship election in Ondo State, had said the APC would take over the Southwest by 2027 with victories in Oyo and Osun State. In his response, Makinde, in a statement by his chief press secretary, Solomon Olarewaju, said Ganduje's statement, which came on the heels of the party's victory in Edo and Ondo governorship elections, was misguided, adding that the people of Osun State had been blessed to see the light that Governor Ademola Adeleke represented and would show the APC Pepe in the next governorship election in the state. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has described governance as a covenant where politicians must live up to the campaign promises made to the electorate. Nyesom Wike said President Bola Tinubu is fulfilling his promises through him. Wike, who disclosed this while inaugurating the construction of the Kabusa-Keti access road in Abuja, said there is nothing difficult about government and Mr. President has come through him to fulfill the promise he has made. 6 travelers were killed after a vehicle conveying them ran on explosives planted along the Dasadu Gasu Road in the Maru local government area of Zamfara State. Eyewitnesses said some bandits planted the explosives after the completion of community work on the road, and the tragic incident occurred along the Gasu Dansadao Road when the commercial vehicle ran over the explosive device planted by bandits. The explosion destroyed the bridge and reportedly claimed lives, while a local resident, Sani Musa, said the explosives were part of the bandits' strategy to launch a reprisal on Unguwa Galadimawa village, adding that the attack was intended to avenge the killing of their leader, Sani Black, by the village vigilante group. Musa said the village had alerted military personnel about the impending attack, prompting the bandits to plant the explosive to thwart any rescue mission. You're watching The Transition on Atlantic Television Network. We'll return shortly after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. Now the rest of our stories. Nigerian Senate has dismissed reports of its plenary that tax reform bills have been suspended, saying that the bills are alive and in progress. Akpabio said the tax reform bills have not been withdrawn by the Senate because it's an executive bill, and spoke against the backdrop of a point of order raised by the Senate leader Michael Bamidele Okpeyemi that the proceedings of the chamber were misreported, particularly on the controversial tax reform bill. Okpeyemi said the report suggested that senators were confused and the only option was the suspension of the bills, adding that senators do not move from one television station to another trying to correct misinformation, but could only deliberate on issues on the floor of the Senate, urging the Senate to be clear on the tax reform bill now that the public has been misinformed. Reacting, the Senate President thanked the committee chairman, Senator Abba Moro, for having commenced sitting as soon as the committee was announced yesterday. Senate has revised the bill aimed at prohibiting the export of maize, introducing a provision for a minimum 1-year jail term for individuals convicted of exporting unprocessed maize in large quantities. The amended bill, originating from the House of Representatives, seeks to ban the exportation of maize and its derivatives in substantial commercial amounts. Following consideration of its clauses at the Committee of the Whole, the bill was approved through voice votes by the majority of senators. The revised provision states that any individual who exports, facilitates the export, induces another person to export, or attempts to export unprocessed maize, whether in grains, on cobs, fresh or dry, in large commercial quantities of at least 1 metric ton or more, is guilty of an offense, and a person who contravenes the provision of subsection 1 is liable on conviction to a fine in the monetary value of the goods exported or sought to be exported, or imprisoned for a term of 1 year or both. It also said customs officers or other persons who procures or conspires with another person to commit an offense under this section is liable on conviction to the penalty under subsection 2. And the Federal High Court has jurisdiction over any offense committed under this bill. The Deputy Senate President also said the differences on the bill would be resolved at the conference committee. House of Representatives says it is not happy with the intractable menace of street begging and almajiri in the Federal Capital Territory. Therefore, the House resolved to probe the Federal Capital Territory Administration's social protection programs and assess the condition of its rehabilitation center for street beggars and almajiris located in Bawari Local Government Council. This decision followed the adoption of a motion sponsored by Bashir Dawudu, the representative of Oshodi Isolo, one federal constituency, Lagos State, titled "Need to Investigate the Abuja Rehabilitation Center and the Social Protection Programs of the FCT." Dawudu highlighted that on October 22, 2024, the FCT administration declared a crackdown on street begging as part of efforts to restore Abuja's image and improve security, adding that many street beggars are individuals with disabilities, while other contributing factors include the almajiri system, poverty, unemployment, and internal displacement. The lawmaker described street begging as a long-standing societal issue in Nigeria, noting that since 2003, successive FCT administrations had employed law enforcement agents to apprehend, prosecute, or repatriate beggars, stating that it provides only a temporary fix as beggars often reappear in new locations. House of Representatives has urged the federal government to consider the interest of Nigerians living in broader communities. The House also implored the FG to distribute palliatives to them to cushion the effect of hardship exacerbated by the removal of fuel subsidy. The decision of the legislative body followed the adoption of a motion on Thursday on the need to give consideration in the provision of palliatives to citizens in Nigeria border communities, which was moved by the member representing Egbado North, Imeko Ofon Federal Constituency, Ogun State, Mr. Adeboyega Isiaka. Speaking on the significance of the motion, Isiaka noted that on July 11, 2023, a resolution was passed by the House urging the federal government through the Nigerian Customs Service to lift the ban on petroleum products moving 20 kilometers to and from the borders. Isiaka said the House is worried about the situation and it could get worse if urgent intervention is not taken by the federal government to lift the ban on petroleum products moving 20 kilometers to and from the border in these communities. The Committee on Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Finance and Agricultural and Food Production were given 4 weeks to report back to the House for further legislative actions. Federal government has probed some civil servants with degrees from private tertiary institutions in Benin Republic and Togo. And the directives affected federal workers who graduated from the institution from 2017 to date. The Director of Information and Public Relations in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Shegun Imohiosen, said August the federal government announced that only 8 universities had been accredited to award degrees to Nigerians in Togo and Benin Republic. This followed an undercover investigation report in which the acquired degree from a university in Benin Republic in 2 months was used, and it was used to participate in the National Youth Service Corps scheme. And the government banned the accreditation and evaluation of degrees from tertiary institutions in Benin Republic and Togo. The federal government also stepped up an interministerial investigative committee on degree certificate miling and revealed that over 22,500 Nigerians obtained fake degree certificates from Benin Republic and Togo, and such certificates would be cancelled. MAM said the revelation was part of a report submitted to the Federal Executive Council by the investigative committee instituted to probe degree certificate racketeering by foreign and local universities in Nigeria, and also insisted there was no going back on the federal government's decision to cancel about 22,500 certificates awarded to Nigerians by some fake universities in the 2 francophone countries. He also said the decision to invalidate the certificates was not harsh, as Nigerians who obtained degree certifications from such tertiary institutions dent the country's image, while the NYSC Director of Information, Caroline Embu, confirmed that 5 members of staff had been sacked in line with the SFG's directive. Chairman of the Police Service Commission, DIG Hashimu Agungu, retired, says any candidate caught attempting to bribe or compromise the ongoing admission process into the police academy, Wadil Kano, will be immediately disqualified. Agungu, who issued this warning during a supervisory visit to the academy, where he led a high-powered delegation to oversee the 2024 post-JAMB admission screening process during the visit. Police Service Commission chairman stressed that the admission exercise must be conducted with integrity, fairness and respect for equity. A statement by the commission's spokesperson, Ikechukwu Ani, said the chairman warned against candidates engaging in unethical practices, stating any candidate negotiating to pay money for consideration should be weeded out and the process must run on merit and transparency. Agugu, who also inspected various facilities at the academy, including the moot courts, clinic, library, lecture theaters and screening centers, while some complaints about malfunctioning computers, and directed immediate rectification to ensure a smooth screening exercise. Commending the academy's leadership, particularly its commandant, AIG Abubakar Sadiq, Agogo praised the innovative measures implemented for the screening process, including the use of computer-based testing, adding that the transparent process allows candidates to view their results immediately after submission, ensuring accountability. In effort to reshape the public and global perception of Nigeria's national security, media practitioners have been urged to put the country's national interest above personal, emotional, and sentimental values. This was an anonymous decision reached at the end of a roundtable discussion with National Counter-Terrorism Center under the Office of the National Security Advisors and Media Professionals in Abuja. Speaking at the event, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, said negative media projection of Nigerians' national interest has a detrimental effect playing out now, preventing investors into the economy. He said it is important for journalists to take responsibility for reporting with accuracy, fairness and sensitivity in an environment that often breeds misinformation and heightened emotions.
We will also need to advocate for sustainable practices through reporting on innovative practices in defense, as well as using available data to tell the stories as evidence-based outcomes allows for a more informed public discourse. These options will engender trust and cooperation between the military, civil society, and other stakeholders, and enhance contextual and understanding of local dynamics for enhanced social cohesion and effective collaboration. You must love a place to protect that area. You must love your country for your country to thrive. If we put anything ahead of our country, then we're not getting it right. Most times we look at money. Everybody is after money. And so we downgrade your country just because you think you are making money, not knowing that you are equally, unintentionally also killing yourself. Because if the country goes down, you are also going down with it. And without a stable country, you can't be even there to practice. So I think that's one key area that we really, really need to look at, that we must love our country. And it's when you love your country, you can protect it.
The coordinator, National Counter-Terrorism Center, Major General Adamu Gabalaka, said there was need for a balance between reporting and national interest. Hence, it is crucial to shape public and global perception on policy and critical issues on national security.
The objective of this roundtable discussion with you is to foster an open and insightful exchange of ideas. By sharing your experiences, observations, and challenges, together we aim to enhance collective understanding of the dynamism of terrorism and its evolving tactics, discover the ethical considerations of reporting on such sensitive issues, identify opportunities for collaboration between journalists, security experts, and policymakers, and harvest thoughts for the development of a national strategic communication plan and protocols for the gathering and distribution of news on terrorism and violent extremism, with the hope of stemming threats to our national security and interest.
And that before he came to Nigeria, the stories about Nigeria, about security, he was reading. And the security report, the diplomatic cables that always flow from Nigeria. Anybody will be scared to want to come to Nigeria. But when he got here, he saw that the country is not anywhere the Armageddon that our media has projected it to be. So this event is very important, and it will help us to know why we are doing our job as journalists, as reporters, reporting all we do. Of course, they say journalism is history written in a hurry, because we only have deadlines to meet. We need to know the place of national interest.
The aim of the gathering is to enhance collective understanding of the dynamics of terrorism and its evolving tactics, discover the ethical consideration of reporting of such sensitive issues, and identity opportunities for collaboration between security experts and policymakers for national communication plan. And now to some business reports. President Bola Tinubu's Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, says the Port Harcourt refinery is operating at 70% installed capacity, with plans to increase production shortly, and the refinery receives regular crude oil, contrary to claims of lacking the product. He disclosed this after joining a fact-finding team to the 60,000 barrels per day refinery, adding that the lies and doubts about the refinery has been dismissed by the team's fact-finding mission. This is coming after, in November, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Olufemi Soneye, announced the commencement of Port Harcourt refinery, while the NNPCL spokesperson said the refinery commenced operation with 60% capacity. Soneye said the refinery is processing 60,000 barrels per day of crude, adding that the facility has a combined 250,000 barrels per day capacity. Still ahead, international tidbits. Delegation of the West African Elders Forum observed mission led by former President Goodluck Jonathan has arrived in Accra, Ghana, ahead of the December 7th general elections in the country. The YAEF's communications officer, Wealth Dixon Ominabo, who disclosed this in a statement in Abuja, quoted Jonathan on arrival in Ghana as urging Ghanaians to be patriotic and work for peace, free and transparent elections, while other members of the delegation include former Burkina Faso Prime Minister and President of the ECOWAS, Kadri Okwedrogo, Executive Director of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation, Mrs. Anne Inowu, and Special Advisor to Jonathan, Ikechukwu Eze. Jonathan commended the people of Ghana for their enduring commitment to democratic values, adding that Ghana's history of peaceful political transitions served as a beacon for democratic governance across Africa, and also charged the Electoral Commission of Ghana and the security agencies to keep their mandate of independence and neutrality to ensure a credible polling process. The former president also called on political parties, candidates and all stakeholders to respect the integrity of the electoral process and pledge to resolve disputes through lawful and constitutional channels, and further urge the youth and party supporters to remain law-abiding during and after the elections, avoiding acts of intimidation or violence. Describing Ghana as a model of democracy, Jonathan also urged Ghanaians to seek to safeguard Ghana's democratic legacy by rejecting violence, intimidation, or actions that could undermine the integrity of the electoral process. Colombian Finance Minister Ricardo Bonilla resigned at the request of President Gustavo Petro after accusations that he turned a blind eye to the bribery of parliamentarians. A former advisor accused Bonilla last week of knowing that lawmakers were being paid off in return for backing key reforms promised by Petro, while the Attorney General's office alleges the bribes were paid with $20,000 taken from public funds. However, Petro said that Bonilla would be replaced by his deputy, Diego Guevara, adding that a sweeping corruption scandal has engulfed numerous top government officials as well as MPs from both the ruling party and the opposition. In July, the country's intelligence chief, a close ally of President Petro, resigned after prosecutors accused him of overseeing the bribery of parliamentary leaders to speed up the passage of bills, while Petro came to power in 2022 with an ambitious agenda of social reforms. Police in New York are using facial recognition technology and a discarded cell phone to identify and track the killer of a healthcare chief executive. United Healthcare boss Brian Thompson was fatally shot in the back morning outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, while the attacker fled the scene without taking any of Thompson's belongings, and the police believe Thompson was targeted in a pre-planned killing. They are focusing on a surveillance image taken in a branch of Starbucks just before the shooting, and we know about the suspect and the investigation. The shooting took place in a busy part of Manhattan close to Times Square and Central Park, and Thompson had been scheduled to speak at an investor conference later in the day. New York Police Department Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenney have revealed that the suspect's weapon appeared to malfunction, but he was able to quickly fix it and continue shooting. Now to entertainment. Music star Davido has shared what he believes in is the motivation for Nigerians seeking childbirth abroad. This is coming after there has been a trend of upper and middle-class Nigerians giving birth to their children abroad. He also said children born abroad have access to foreign citizenship, opportunities, good medical care and quality education, amongst others. Asake has been ranked the most streamed Nigerian singer on Spotify for 2024. Spotify made this known during the 2024 edition of its annual recap of listeners' musical choices, Wrapped. Also, his albums Work of Art, Lungu Boy and Mr. Money with the Vibe dominates the list of most streamed Nigerian albums of the year 2024. While Young John's Jiggy Forever ranked most streamed album of the year. Burna Boy emerged Nigeria's most exported artist and the only Nigerian in the UK's top 100. Now to sports. Former Arsenal star Ian Wright has criticized Kai Havertz for his display during the Gunners Premier League 2-0 win over Manchester United. Wright said the Germany international was sloppy against Manchester United, while during the encounter, Havertz had strayed into an offside position before Gabriel Martinelli's goal. But Martinelli's goal was rightly ruled out as the flag went up against Havertz. Former Manchester United striker Dimitar Berbatov has identified the club's big problem under their current manager, Ruben Amorim. Amorim suffered his first defeat as Man United manager after his side's Premier League 2-0 defeat against Arsenal at Emirates Stadium. 2 goals from Jurrien Timber and William Saliba gave Mikel Arteta's side all 3 points against the Red Devils. Reacting, Berbatov admitted that Man United's big problem is set pieces. And that is the size of the package. Thank you for joining us. TV Net on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, and on Instagram, Atlantic Network. Remember, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Please stay with us because up next is Society Watch.